I am so pleased to be here for the 13th annual Dr. Kenneth E. Cyril Outerbridge Packwood Memorial Lecture, a conversation with Dr. Eva Hodgson, which is a key event in this year's 2018 Emancipation Commemoration organized by the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs. Tonight, I am very much looking forward to hearing from activist, historian, author, and teacher, Dr. Eva Hodgson, who, as many of us know, has been an outspoken champion of race relations and founded the National Association of Reconciliation. We are so honored to have Dr. Hodgson as a presenter, given her long-standing activism on the island. Dr. Hodgson, thank you and welcome. By way of background, the Dr. Kenneth E. Cyril Outerbridge Packwood Memorial Lecture began in 2006 as a way of honoring two prominent Bermudian historians, both of whom have made a major contribution to our understanding of Bermuda's history. Mr. Cyril Outerbridge Packwood, author of Chained on the Rock, and Dr. Kenneth E. Robinson, author of Heritage. The works and research of both these men are extremely valuable as a record of our cultural history, particularly to Bermudians of African descent. Since its inception 12 years ago, this memorial lecture has been given by a number of distinguished historians. This year, the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs decided to pair up the annual lecture with Bermuda's 2018 Emancipation Commemoration because of the rich research and writing that Dr. Eva Hodgson has done regarding the political, economic, and social conditions of Black Bermudians since the 1900s. Her work aligns strongly with one of the goals of the Trail of Our People series, which has been the signature emancipation event for the past 5 years. One of the overarching goals of that series has been to highlight the significant influences and impact of Bermudians of African descent in the various parishes of our island home. As the minister responsible for community and cultural affairs, I am confident that this conversation tonight will be informative and will spark in all of us a desire to learn more about our collective heritage. I would like to thank the members of the Bermudian Heartbeats Lecture Series Committee and the Emancipation Committee for their work in organizing this program. And we look forward to an enlightening talk.
So good evening and welcome, Dr. Hodgson. I'm delighted to be asked to interview you for the Robertson Packwood Lecture. We first met in the 1960s at Berkeley because you were my teacher. And, and I'm pleased to say there are several of my classmates here. So there are a couple of Berkeley students from those days here as well. But, and of course you were a formidable person at Berkeley. So I'm going to start this off by starting at the beginning. Tell us about Eva Naomi Hodgson, the child. Did you jump off the rocks, climb trees, and catch lizards with your brothers and sisters? Or did you stay indoors and read books?
It's been such a long time ago. I'm not sure I remember. I think one of the things I do remember that I used to do is play house. I did not do a lot of rock climbing. I'm not a very athletic or energetic person, so I didn't do any of that, climb trees and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But I do remember playing house as a child.
Okay. Were you always a good student?
I was always prepared to be submissive to authorities.
When did that change?
I can't say the exact date that it changed, but I do know that there was definitely a change in my attitude, because there was a time when I would be in the staff room and if I said anything, if I were talking, people weren't listening to me. And I remember that there came a point in my life while I was abroad that I realized that I was in some ways rather passive. And something changed within me. And when I returned, when I opened my mouth, everybody listened to me. I'm not quite sure what made the difference apart from the awareness that there needed to be a change, so that there was a change.
Okay. Was there one teacher who made a strong impression on you?
A person that I remember admiring a lot, and it wasn't just as a teacher, it was as I grew older and saw her, was Rosalind Robinson. She was a very gracious person, and as an adult, I came to admire her a great deal. I don't remember what my attitude was when she was actually teaching me, but I know that she was a very gracious person and someone that I came to admire. Another favorite, I think, not just of mine at the time, was T.N. Tatum. He was a gracious person,
Okay.
I think.
Well, it's worth mentioning that Mrs. Robinson is the wife of Dr. Kenneth Robinson, so that's
Yes.
quite fitting that you mentioned this. What about your family members? Which family members influenced you the most?
I really can't say particularly. I know that my father's family, most of whom that I knew were Christians, and so that would have been a significant influence. I can't say the same thing for my mother's family, so that they were less influential, but my father's family were all committed Christians.
You have mentioned an uncle who...
Yes, Uncle Ali. Uncle Ali used to be somebody who, with all of his Christian principles, recognized that, what is the scripture? You looked it up.
Yes, I did.
And I never remember to say where it is.
Princes shall come out of Egypt.
Yeah, this was the scripture that he always quoted to me. Princes shall come out of Egypt, Ethiopia shall soon stretch out her hands unto God. In other words, though he was really saying, hey, look, black people are going to get it together at some point.
And that verse, of course, was inspiration for Marcus Garvey
Yes.
and even the Rastas as well.
He wasn't a Rasta, but that was his scripture.
Would it be fair to say that you were raised in a strict religious household?
I was raised in a Christian household. I'm not sure how strict it was. My father used to use a dish towel when he wanted to correct us, so, you know.
But there were a lot of things you couldn't do.
Oh, that's true. Well, a lot of things. The one thing I remember, we couldn't go to movies because they were worldly.
Yes. Couldn't drink.
Yeah, well, there have been all kinds of reasons apart from Christianity not to drink.
Okay. What sparked your interest in the cause of racial equality?
I lived in Bermuda. My question would be, why isn't everybody as concerned about it as I am?
But was it one incident, perhaps? A book or a mentor? Or?
No, not that I can remember.
Yeah.
It's just living in a segregated society.
Okay, okay.
You know, at that time, Bermuda was small enough and close enough so that people said good morning or good afternoon as you met people.
Mm-hmm.
And white people never spoke to black people.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an indication of the kind of relationships. And you know, it was just that kind of thing which, you know, prompted my reaction.
Okay. One criticism is that you're a one-issue person. Why always race? Why not say women's equality, for instance?
Well, if you took care of race, you might have time for women's equality. What's the point of having women's equality as long as you're still under racial oppression?
Okay, okay.
It's the most significant detriment to the society. And I don't understand why more people aren't as upset about it as I used to be.
Okay. The family were very interested in education, I guess, but what led you to become a teacher?
There again, because there wasn't much that black people could do in my young years besides teach or be nurses.
Okay. You left Bermuda to attend Queen's University, where you obtained your undergraduate degree. Were you ever tempted during your student days to turn your back on your religious upbringing?
No, not really.
The pubs didn't tempt you?
I didn't know what was in the pub, so why would they tempt me?
Well, they tempted me. When you were a student, I read that you worked as a cook to earn money to travel to the Canadian Rockies. Has travel been a big part of your life?
Travel has been a big part of my life.
Yeah.
I used to travel a fair amount.
Right, okay. You did further studies in London where you met students from the Caribbean. And you've said that meeting them was eye-opening.
It was eye-opening because in Bermuda, I had never met a black person who had written a book. And I was a great reader when I was young. And when I went to London, I met a lot of Caribbean black students who in fact had been authors and written books. And so I was very impressed by that.
Good. Now, back in Bermuda, you taught geography at Berkeley, and you became president of the Amalgamated Bermuda Union of Teachers. And you also found time to write Second-Class Citizens, First-Class Men. How did that book come about?
It came about because when I read books in the library, and at one time I used to do a fair amount of reading, I never read about any black people, and there weren't any black authors that I came across. So to author a book about black people just became something that I felt needed to be done.
Okay. I'm wondering whether you had time to do that. You would have. You were working full time.
Summer holidays was the time.
Right. The book was considered controversial when it was first published in '67, and it was reprinted in 1988. It is now considered a seminal work. One of the questions that I have, and even one of the reviewers at the time says, you did not identify any white people in that book, not even Dr. Ball.
Something that I now regret, but at the time, since white people never recognized black people, I decided I wouldn't recognize white people.
Now, there was one white person that you did name, and that was the governor, Sir Julian Gascoigne.
Yeah, but he probably didn't fall into the same category, or at least I didn't think so at the time.
Right.
Yes, but that's something I did, and I do now regret, and have always regretted, that I did not name the white people in my good or bad.
The two men who loom large in that book are W.L. Tucker and Dr. Eustace Cann. Do you think they should be national heroes?
Sure.
Why? For people who don't know either or don't remember either of those men.
I do remember you myself.
Well, I'm going to tell you what someone said about you and W.L. Tucker, who was called the father of the franchise. William Zool once said, I think she was in love with W.L. Tucker.
I was very impressed by him. Yeah, no, and I think that as he was a conservative person, but I think the very fact that he raised, the first person to raise the issue, at the time he said that people who didn't rent but who leased houses should have the vote. Mm-hmm. That was a very conservative stance to take, as it turned out.
Right.
But he did raise the issue about broadening the franchise.
Right.
because at that time only those who had property. And interestingly enough, you know, when you think about it, somebody could have property in all 9 parishes and could vote for people in all 9 parishes, while somebody who didn't have property couldn't vote in any at all.
Right, right. Which is why elections were held over 3 days. To give everybody time to vote in all the parishes where they own land.
So as bad as we are today, we have come a little.
What about Dr. Can? Do you remember? He was mentioned. He was asked to be president of the BIU, or the Bermuda Workers Association first, and he turned it down. And then they asked Dr. Gordon next.
Yes, well, he would have been more conservative, I guess, than Dr. Gordon. I can't remember details about them at this point, but he clearly was somebody who was progressive at the time.
Right.
You know, and because he was a professional, because traditionally professionals in Bermuda have always been conservative, you know, and we're not the ones to lead change,
Right.
lead for change. It's always been those who were in labor that.
Okay. I'm going to just talk about your career again. Your career has been quite varied. You taught at high school and at the college level in the States, and you also recorded oral histories of Bermudians. I'm wondering, though, what job have you most enjoyed?
I suppose recording oral history.
Oh. And why?
Because I am curious about people, for one thing.
Okay.
And it's interesting to have a person talk to you about their experience and their perspective on life.
Okay. What job did you most covet but did not get?
It's interesting and strange, but I always felt that working in an office, because black people didn't work in an office when I was young, in offices when I was young. It's something that I always, well, it was something that was segregated, so therefore it's something that I would have wanted to do. And when I went abroad, I had the opportunity to work in an office, and I was never more bored in my life.
Did your strong views on race hold you back professionally?
Probably, I don't know. My mouth probably held me back.
Did you ever decide to run for a seat in Parliament?
No, I was too much of a coward. I didn't like to be defeated.
Okay. And Hamilton Parish has traditionally been what I call a flip-flop parish. Until recently, it could go either way.
But I never gave it that much thought.
You never,
in any case.
okay.
But I do know that it's not something that I wanted to do.
Okay. Now, it's a surprise to many that you're opposed to independence.
That's not quite the way to put it. When people were talking about independence, while we were still racially segregated, I felt that we were emphasizing the wrong issue. In other words, what's the point of being independent and give white people more power to oppress black people? So that's one of my reasons that independence was never an issue to me. To me, it was the white people in Bermuda who were my problem, not white people in Great Britain.
Okay. Which past political leaders do you most admire? Is that a blank? You could say Arthur.
No, well, I'll stick with Dr. Gordon.
Okay. Dr. Gordon, she'll stick with Dr. Gordon. What about present leaders?
Do you know, I've reached the stage where I'm so old that all of the young people in Parliament, I don't know a lot of them.
Okay.
You get to a place with old, young, and you do know them. Yeah, so I can't really comment on them.
Okay.
I should say that I've got great hopes for him.
Okay. some people would say, what's your beef? Racial barriers have fallen. We have a black government, universal suffrage. The 40 thieves have gone. What would be your response to that?
Look at the census. How many of you have looked at this recent census?
Census.
If you've looked at it, do you know why it would still have a beef?
Exactly, clear.
And you
Have a look at the census, or at least, if you don't read the whole thing, get somebody to tell you the central issue.
and the central issue would be economic
The
inequality.
disparity is still very much there.
Right, right,
It's really amazing that it's still as great as it is
right,
when black people have the vote.
right, right. Okay. Would it be fair to say that you come from a family of means and you are therefore free to be so outspoken?
I do not come from a family of means. I come from a Christian family who didn't spend their money on clubs and drinks.
Okay, so you're very frugal. Okay. Do you have any close white friends?
Yes, I think, is Lynn Winfield in here? I thought I saw her, I'm not sure. Lynn Winfield is a white person who I would say that I'm fairly close to.
Right.
But you know, that's an awful thing to talk about, because if blacks and whites don't intermingle in social settings, and how are you going to make friends with them? You know, your paths don't cross. I've seen young people, and I can't remember his name now, Dill is the last name, who went to an integrated school, which I did not go to. And he used to have a problem with me because he went to an integrated school. And as he grew older, he discovered that the integration he had in school did not necessarily carry over into his job situation, into his social life. So, you know, if you don't mingle, you can't make friends.
Okay. You've been subjected to a lot of ridicule over the years. How have you been able to withstand this constant criticism?
Partly because I haven't noticed it.
Got-
I haven't been aware of it.
You have a thick skin.
Well, I know that people are critical of me.
Yeah.
And anybody who talks about race as much as I do is going to get criticized by both black and white. But apart from that, it's not an issue.
Have there been ever threats on your life or
Oh, no.
anything?
Yeah, not that I would know.
No. Okay.
Bermudians haven't been in the past very violent.
Right. Did you ever consider pulling up stakes and leaving Bermuda?
Why?
Well, a lot of people do. People
Well,
have in the
They don't
past.
have the same investment in Bermuda that I have.
Okay. Right. Okay. Going to get a bit personal now. Do you ever wish you'd married?
Certainly in my 20s and early 30s, it was an objective which most women seem to have. So that was an issue at that time.
Right. Did you ever come close?
I'm not sure what come close means.
Sounds like you might have.
Well, you know, in any case, I'd have been limited because I would have had to marry a Christian.
Okay. Okay. So that meant that there were fewer people to choose from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think the issue of racial equality resonates with young Bermudians?
Not as much as I would like to see it. I don't think young Bermudians. But young Bermudians, because there's a little more integration in the schools. I don't know. Maybe because I don't know a whole lot of young Bermudians.
Okay. Now, who's going to take up the baton for the cause when you have moved off the scene?
Does someone have to take up my baton? That's my issue.
Well, would you agree that
That
there would be a
someone
gap?
Well, I think that all the black people ought to be taking up the issue, not just one person. You know, when you read the census report, it's still an issue. And only aggressive affirmative action can make the least dent in it. And I don't know, certainly the last PLP government wasn't prepared to do it. And I don't know to what extent this PLP government, somebody like Commission, I guess, would raise the issue. You need positive, unabashed affirmative action policies to even address it, to make people aware of it. And that's something that that the government hasn't been prepared to do in a very unabashed fashion. You know, at one time they had the workforce equity proposal, and all that was, it was a proposal for information about employment and whatever, employment and wages and salaries and so on. And there was a tremendous pushback, so much so that they would not carry the bill through. So there's very strong pushback to addressing the issue.
Okay. But that is your hope that the government will?
Well, that's my dream. I don't know whether it's going as far as hope either.
Okay.
Because there's so much pushback that a government needs to have real conviction about it and have real commitment about it and be prepared to deal with the pushback which will inevitably come.
Okay. What role do you see white Bermudians playing in the years ahead?
You're going to ask me what white folks ought to do?
You don't have a comment.
Well, first of all, they should have a change of heart, and only the Lord can do that. And once that happens, then they will know what to do.
Okay. Do you think Bermuda will be grappling with the issue of racial inequality 100 years from now?
Most likely.
Do you?
I don't see any sufficient change in the last 50 years to assume that it'll all go away in the next 100 years.
What do you think your legacy will be?
Oh, Lord. I don't know. It's not something that I would give much thought to.
Okay. You know, someone told me many years ago that Dr. Hodgson is like Cassandra the prophet. She was a Greek prophet. And her curse was that her prophecies were true, but nobody believed them. What would be your response to that description of you?
Well, I wouldn't make a prophecy.
Huh?
I wouldn't prophesy.
Well, I guess they meant your view of things, that people just didn't believe what you were saying, but what you were saying were true.
I think most people are too busy with their daily lives, their individual daily lives, that they don't want to take on these larger issues unless they come up against it in a personal fashion. And very often black people can live lives which don't bring them face to face with racial oppression in a very overt way, so that's not an issue that they have time for. They're too busy just doing the daily struggle.
Okay. Is there a biblical figure that you admire?
Oh dear. Not that. I can't really say there is.
Okay. Well, I think I'm heading to my last question.
Yeah.
How many letters to the editor would you estimate you have written over the years?
Well, I could count them in the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, even the last perhaps couple of years. I might be able to count them. But going back further, I couldn't count them.
Okay. But there have probably clearly been hundreds, right?
Well, there's been a number.
Okay.